Students of Historical Research and Writing at LCSC, Professor Eric Martin, and welcome to week 4. So what I want to do here is just shoot a short video explaining kind of where we're going with week 4 in terms of process. And this is especially for the online students, but for the in-class students, it could be useful as well. And then talk a little bit about what we did last week, sort of, and mostly talk about what's coming up because, you got to look it's weird, right? Because you got to look a module or two ahead just to make sure that you kind of understand where the big projects are coming. But module 2 or ahead are not necessarily ready for the online students in terms of how we're going to handle things. But it's really the projects that I want you thinking about. So let's just go into the modules and talk about what's happening. This should be set up so that we're only talking about what you can see, which sometimes winds up being an issue. All right. Week 2 notes. Somebody owes us some week 2 notes. I need to look to see who was supposed to do that. So, week 3, the previous week, right? The mission was to go into your research projects links and everybody gets some descriptions of your projects up. So it looks like we've got some new ones up. That's excellent. I want everybody to have one of these up. We're going to work with these for the rest of the semester. Okay. I described it in my previous video, but we're just going to create some threads where you continue to refine your project. I can get a sense about how you're working on it. Other people can put some input in on it. Maybe later we use these for rough drafts. But thank you for those of y'all who've put these up so far. Everybody needs to have something. That includes people in the face-to-face class. And then we had an opportunity for some general discussion. There wasn't a whole lot. This was last week. I'm not going to do this every week. I'm just reminding you of the features. And then for the online folks, we had the readings discussion. And I've laid this out in which I've just assigned people who are responsible for breaking it down. And when you're responsible for breaking it down, in general, let's take a look at Lawrence here. Pretty good start. It seems like the others in the class could chime in, add a few things to it, and then, maybe we get close, right? Just kind of keep in mind that this is functioning as the discussion portion of your grade for the online students. And back to the reading discussions, okay? Because really what I'm worried about is the Gaddis chapters. And then if you guys pull stuff out of the Turabian book, let's chat about that as well. I actually changed that up a little bit for the coming week. All right, so that's just a quick review. Mostly on process. What we're doing this week. Insert video here. That'll be this video. You guys shouldn't see that. All right, same thing. Your research projects, right? Keep whittling them out. Keep figuring them out. Keep working on them. That's what you're really focused on. Because next week, your formal historiography proposal is due. Okay, now I have this linked in here so that we don't forget about it. So what's up with this? This is roughly a half-page statement explaining what you propose to study. This should be formal writing, all right? It should have a preliminary breakdown of some of the various schools of thought or historical perspectives you anticipate. Now, some of y'all know I can be a real stickler for upper end word count. In this particular case, if you want to go further than half a page, be my guest, but you don't need to. And I would rather have clean, clear, polished half a page than I blasted it out a page and a half. Okay? Knock out the fluff. And then you're going to come up with an annotated bibliography. I'll talk about the annotations for just a moment here. But the annotation bibliography is going to have at least 12 sources. I want at least one article from one of these journals. The reason I use these journals is if your article comes from one of these journals, it's a good article. All right, this stuff is peer reviewed. It has been my experience that you guys struggle a little bit with understanding what the peer review process is and what it means. And basically what it means is before it's published in one of those articles, it's been run by a panel of historians to decide whether it's legitimate. Not necessarily where they entirely agree with it, but are the methods legit? So you don't have to worry about this stuff being, nonsensical. Here, you're looking for materials from 2 other scholarly journals. Make sure they're peer reviewed, okay? And then at least 3 books. Most of your stuff is going to be books. There's probably going to be some chapters of books, right? Again, I want to remind folks, for the purposes of this project, your authors need to be historians, okay? If you can't find a project that has been written up by several different historians, you might struggle to find historical interpretation. And that is the whole subject of study for this class, historical interpretation. All right? So make your life easier and look up your authors, make sure they're historians. And really what you're doing here with this research proposal is you're laying out, this is the idea that I have. This is kind of what I want to study. I've found these couple of authors that seem to have different approaches to my topic. And here's a list of the sources and kind of what I expect to find. In other words, my topic has sources. And this will function as the preliminary map for you going into your project. If you have this topic sounds great, but I can't find sources, let's talk about annotations. If you go into the modules, drop all the way down to the resource warehouse. There's this part here on annotated bibliographies. Click. And you get a couple. One written by a student of mine, oh my gosh, 13 years ago now. Seems like she was in class yesterday. And one written by me. Let's take a look at hers. I just want to show you kind of what the annotation is. All right, so she gives us the half-page description of having organized her annotation. She discovers some different challenges with the way she groups the project. And then, this is exactly how to do an annotation. You lay out the author, you lay out the, or in this particular case, the editor, the name of the work, the publisher, all that kind of information. And then, who's the author? All right, he's a professor of African history at University of California. He put this collection together for classes in African history. The book covers decolonization, environmental history, issues, democracy, development of nations. I used the article by these people, so one article he found in there to explain how weak African democracies would fail, how you're going to use the book. I'm looking like this one right here. This little part right here, she's not sure how she's going to use the book, but I think this is going to be the way she, what she expects to find in here. So these are annotations. They're descriptions of the book and kind of what you think they're going to do for your project. Now, let me emphasize, Amy didn't read all these books before she put together her annotated bibliography, but she reconned them. She went and looked, spent some time in the library, putting together, this is my topic, what kind of books might I find? She sat down, probably pulled out 20 books, just sat there at one of the tables in the library, kind of scanned the introduction, and it's like, all right, I think I can use this. Wrote up an annotation, put it in her to be checked out pile, looked at the next book, kind of scanned it, nah, not going to work. Looked at the next book, not going to work. Looked at the next book, yeah, I think we can do something with this. Okay? So keep that in mind, because this project, and I can't emphasize this enough times, all right? I'll make sure you guys hear it. This project will be much easier. The final project for this class will be much easier with, quote unquote, the right books. Spend some time figuring out books with a nice, solid historiographic position. All right? Okay, annotated bibliographies. That's easy enough. I'm going to come back to some stuff about your essays in a second, since we're here. So, week 5, your formal proposals are due. So, in your spare time, you should be working on that. Next thing coming down the pike, I forget if it's week 6 or week 7. Yep, week 6. Your first book analysis is due. So in the process of putting your annotated bibliography together, you should be figuring out what's the first book you're going to do a review on for this class. Make it a good one, right? So you should be picking that out. That should be part of your process. I'm putting together the annotated bibliography. I'm figuring out what my book for the first review is going to be, and I'm starting to get into it. Okay? You're probably not at that point yet, but you should be at that point in the next couple of days. Okay? Putting together my bibliography. I've got 2 or 3 books laid out. I'm trying to figure out which one. I'm reading a little bit of each one to see which one seems the most interesting. Yeah, this one seems pretty good. I want to go for it. Okay? Okay. That is the medium future, right? Let's talk about the long-term future. Week 15, your final projects for the class are due. If you have not spent any time, here is same person, Amy Cooper's example of a historiographic essay. It's not the end-all be-all to all essays, but it was good enough for me to want to show you guys this is one way to do it. So if you're kind of unclear about what you're supposed to be doing, take a look at this. Okay, now let's talk about this week. We've talked about your research projects. Week 4 is just straight up general discussions, or this week 4 thing is just for general discussions. You guys want to talk about whatever. Questions about the class is probably more likely. Maybe there's interaction between the online students and the face-to-face students. Maybe not. Readings discussion. Stuff's required for the online folks. For the face-to-face folks, you guys can participate occasionally if you want. However, The way it's going to work goes like this. And I do not like the way that Canvas does these things. Anyway, Gaddis, Chapter 3. Emmeline, you're breaking it down for us. Simple enough, right? Gaddis, Chapter 4. Barbara, you're breaking it down. And instead of just having the general non-discussion about Turabian, Lauren's going to lay this one out. Okay? Now, I would like to see all three of my online students participate in the discussion to some degree. Lauren kicks it off. Barbara and Emmeline bring in a little additional stuff. But the responsibility is on Lauren to get it moving. Same thing with Chapter 4 and Chapter 3 of Gaddis. I'd like to see Barbara fire the first shots and get it laid out. And then I'd like to see Emmeline and Lauren chime in and help me understand that you guys are reading the books, you guys are understanding how it could be working with your projects. Okay? And I haven't really decided how to handle this with the online students. Okay, with the face-to-face students, you guys are turning in these learning through discussion outlines for Gaddis Chapter 3 and 4. The online students, you guys should do this too. If you're firing the initial shots for the Gaddis document, it's not against the law to do some level of cut and paste from this. Don't make it more repetitive than it needs to be. Go ahead, or more difficult than it needs to be. Feel free to just kind of lay some of that out as your initial breakdown. Use it, because that's what the face-to-face students are doing. They're writing this up. They're coming to class. They're talking about it. So the online students, you should write it up, and then you go to the discussion boards and you talk about it. All right, that's what we got for this week. Is that really all we have? I thought we had one more thing. Maybe not. All right, easy enough. So I want to talk briefly maybe about some of the things. I'm gonna keep it separate. I might come up with something separate on the Gaddis book. I want this to be about process. So that's what I got for you for this go round. If you've got any questions about things, Zoom office hours, I have to remember what they were. It seems like I'm on Zoom all the time. Fire them up. Send me an email. For those of y'all in class, this is one of those classes where you can leave me to my own devices and we'll go wherever I feel like going. It's also a really great class where if students get deep enough into your projects, we can talk about the Gaddis book, for example, the manipulation of time and space in the context of your your own projects. So that's it. Enjoy your historical studies.